The movie Pink Floyd The Wall is a dramatized symbolic life story. Pink's father dies at war, and his psyche is smothered by the devouring mother archetype. In Jungian terms, Pink is the figure of trauma collapsing in on itself, an ego unable to mediate the unconscious. The film opens with a surreal hotel hallway. It's empty and clean. Jung would call this the ego's shell, a persona polished on the outside but hollow within. Music plays, the lyrics, Christmas is just another day, a loss of ritual, cut off from archetypal meaning. It cuts to Pink's father lighting a lantern at war, then dying. Pink is shown as a man with no rooted self, haunted by his father's death. Now Pink sits frozen in a chair, a cigarette burned out in his hand. It's the ego extinguished. In front of him, the television, a device through which the collective unconscious flows. A maid rattles his door. It's the persona knocking, but the wall of his psyche is too fragile to hold. Suddenly a flood of youth smashing through doors. The archetypal energy of revolt breaking containment, intercut with war. It shows rebellion and destruction as two faces of the same shadow. Then absurdity intrudes. A 7-Up sign flashes. Feeling good is written on it. For Jung, such absurd fragments are not accidents. They are the psyche's way of exposing its own sickness. His disguise of power. It's a mask for his wounded self. The tyrant is a projection of Pink's repressed rage taking form. Then the film cuts to war footage. This symbolizes his inner war spilling into the outer world. Due to the shadow being repressed, this causes it to burst forth as collective destruction. His fantasy of power leads to his childhood, back to the roots of his trauma. The next scene offers 3 symbols: a sleeping mother, a baby Pink confined to a stroller that Jung would call a container of isolation, and the aftermath of war, wounded men after battle. In Jungian terms, this moment reveals the split of the parental archetypes. The mother blissfully ignorant and the father absent. Pink is left between abandonment and captivity. It is the image of a new life inheriting the psyche of war. The next 2 symbols appear as the inside of his home, shown immediately after images of injured soldiers, and a song called Thin Ice plays quietly. In dreams, the home is the inner psyche. Here, the home is shown after the injured soldiers. Pink's private space is interpreted as invaded by the collective unconscious. The song Thin Ice is his psyche speaking in plain words. If you should go skating on thin ice of modern life, don't be surprised when a crack in the ice appears under your feet. You slip out of your depth and out of your mind. Together, these symbols reveal trauma and collective grief wait below. The remaining symbols inside of Pink's home is a television playing Tom and Jerry, Pink lying in a pool of water, and sudden flashes of soldiers screaming. The unconscious sees the cartoon on the TV as the persona, a mask of absurdity that distracts from deeper psychic pain. The pool itself is the unconscious, where Pink floats wounded and bleeding, unable to keep the ego intact, and the screaming soldiers are the collective shadow. They are fragments of history, breaking into his inner world. Together, these symbols show a psyche overwhelmed. The wall, that is his persona, cannot contain the trauma. The unconscious floods in, and the shadow erupts within Pink's home. The pool that Pink lies in is symbolic of the process of alchemical dissolution. The ego's boundaries soften and sink. Going limp or floating, Jung connects to ego fatigue or surrender, a descent toward the darkening. His thrashing is a wound in the psyche erupting. The water turning red is mortificatio, the wounding and bleeding phase. As we enter Pink's childhood, we're shown a photo album, the psyche's archive. The camera lingers on his father. Then, inside a church, a space that's symbolic of sanctuary, we see an excessive display of national flags. This pairing tells us one of Pink's earliest traumas. Pink's inner archive is invaded. His grief for his father is inseparable from the symbols of the nation that killed him. A disturbed psyche, marked by nationalism and a lost father. In front of the church, Pink's mother prays. Her back is turned. Pink wanders and plays with a toy warplane. The lyrics softly sing. Dad has flown across the ocean, leaving just a memory, a snapshot in the photo album. The psyche ties grief to symbol. His mother not acknowledging Pink is to show the audience an accurate portrayal of another wound in Pink's psyche. In Jungian psychology, Pink's mother appears as a split figure. One side is devoted, praying with intensity. The other is absent, her back is turned, as Pink wanders alone. For a child's psyche, this contradiction becomes a wound. The image of care is divided. Pink notices his mum is crying. It's not for Pink at the time, he is already separated. The lyrics, "Daddy, what'd you leave behind for me?" Then as the camera fades into a war memorial plaque, another brick in the wall. In Jungian terms, we see grief from the mum, then the plaque. The personal pain is absorbed into the collective shadow. What was once a man is now depersonalized into symbol. Pink goes home and finds his father's military uniform. Pink puts on the uniform. This is what Carl Jung termed a premature initiation. The father archetype arrives in its dead, war-marked form. He projects the father's life into the uniform. Here, the symbol stands in for the source. The camera cuts to his father in the same uniform, then back to Pink a few times. Pink is unable to separate the symbol from the man. We are shown a baby Pink in a stroller. The split mother sleeps nearby. Devotion present, contact absent. A dove is shown, a symbol of spirit. A cat follows, symbolic of instinct and anima. The dove returns and dissolves into psychedelic animations. The dove flies up, then becomes animated. It bursts into blood and becomes a raven. The dove symbolizes spirit. The raven symbolizes the guide into the underworld. Jung terms this the psychopomp. This is peace being violently replaced by the shadow. The raven's actions symbolize the collective shadow. When it tears up large chunks of earth, it bleeds. The earth reveals itself as a living thing. Now the wounds under society are visible. The raven behaves like the collective shadow. It doesn't explain or justify, it just acts. A direct picture of the impersonal nature of collective movements. After the raven flies away, a giant mutant stands tall. Jung would connect its size to a projection of the collective unconscious. Its nakedness and lack of genitals points at depersonalization, stripped of humanity and individuality. A wide mouth and overfed belly is the persona of consumption. His thin arms suggest weakness. When he raises them, shadow emits. The gesture is the weakness, is overcompensated by the collective shadow. The bright shining eyes is a vision without soul. Archetypally, this is the inflated shadow, combined with overwhelming psychic energy. The giant turns into a building with an arc. Spotlights from below shine towards the structure. This is the collective's attention focusing on the spectacle. The spectacle feeds on focus. The more we watch, the more it claims reality. Planes fly in unison. Jung might say the planes mark archetypal death, taking the form of machine. Lyrics are softly sung. Did you see the frightened ones? Did you see the falling bombs? In Jungian terms, the question forces you to see how the collective unconscious consumes trauma by replaying it as images. People wearing gas masks are panicking and dodging bombardment. The persona protects breath but deletes face. The ego's identity is stripped, leaving raw fear. They hide in a sewer. This is the psyche's descent into the underworld. The psyche hides what it can't integrate. Hundreds of planes fly above in formation. Ritualized collective aggression. Mobilized. Spotlights point upward. It's the collective's attention creating the spectacle. The planes change into white crosses. Violence is transmuted into sacred symbols. Death is absorbed into cultural memory, sanitized, and repeated. A skeleton standing in uniform collapses. The persona of the warrior remains, but the living ego is gone. Only his roll and bones remain. A British flag disintegrates into a bleeding cross. National myth regresses to its core sign, the cross. The bleeding is sacrifice, sanctified. Death becomes holy duty. The raven's glimpse during this is the psyche announcing the dark stage and the cost of the myth. The last symbols in this animated scene are, first, a row of skeletons in uniform disintegrate into white crosses, showing the warrior persona without soul. Their trauma reanimates as ritual. They collapse into impersonal memory. Everyone's lives is marked with the same cross. Pain gets framed as necessary, holy, and helpful. Blood drains into a sewer grate. The city drains what it can't feel. The suffering goes underground into shadow, then returns in personal sickness. The lyric, the flames are long gone, but the pain lingers on. Pain is stored, continuing as ritual.